Chapter 7. Just an Opinion.
One evening, after a day's work, I caught up with a colleague and friend of mine for a beer. The warm spring evening was very helpful in setting the backdrop for long and sincere conversations. So, without further ado, we quickly swung by a local store and landed on a bench in a park not far from our office. Word by word, without any previous intention to dive deep into existential philosophy, we rather soon found ourselves delving into the abyss of the eternal question. What is the point of everything people keep doing day after day, and, basically, life itself? I can't seem to put my feelings into a proper sentence, Valerie said. I mean, I make decent money. I guess I like my job. I travel. I do things. I literally feel like I'm doing better than most folks around me, and I should be content, and not have anything to complain about. But I just can't help but feel like I'm missing something. What is wrong with me? Actually, nothing, I assured her, popping another bottle of beer open. I would say you're too young for a middle-age crisis, and old enough to already have had some proper taste of grown-up life. In other words, you're bored. I don't know. Most of the time, everything seems fine, but then, out of the blue, the wave of depression hits me and I can't even begin to describe it. You know? I've been thinking about the same stuff now and then, and here's what I came up with. Look at our parents. First they were busy with school, then got enrolled into colleges, others got married and started families. I mean, by the age of 25, most of the folks of the older generation had already had a kid or two to take care of. And so another whirl of things and problems started that would suck them in for another 18 plus years. I mean, they had no time for boredom whatsoever. They didn't have the luxury of being idle, since they first had to take care of themselves, and then another human being or even a few. And I bet they always had an answer to what they live for. Now look at us. We are more financially secure than they were at our age. We have more options to spend this money on. Fact. And we have countless forms of entertainment within our reach to lift us up. Another fact. We can travel abroad every once in a while, and the list of things we can do keeps growing. We live a better, safer, and more stable life compared to them. But, I stopped for a sip. But, it feels pointless. My friend, let me be honest with you, again. I strongly believe that we all have fucked up big time. Humanity is doomed, and has taken too many wrong turns, and the best analogy to represent modern society is a plane with burning engines under its wings, which is rapidly falling. What's even more terrifying is that we all keep partying inside, keep procrastinating, and drown ourselves in shots to delay the awareness of hopelessness. And those of us who are still sane enough to try to do something to avoid the unavoidable collision, or at least to grab other folks' attention to the fact that we are actually falling, are called names and get blamed. Sounds reassuring, isn't it? Alright, I'm done with dramatism. Now let me explain my feelings and concerns in a more composed manner. I do understand that in the modern progressive world, my following words and thoughts may ignite a blaze in the lower part of the backs of my progressive readers. Of course, if this verbal masterpiece ever gets out there to be read by someone but me. However, I intentionally named this chapter in such a way, because I also believe that speaking out an opinion, not even too radical of an opinion to be honest, is an absolutely normal and common right of every person who can speak. Let's jump right to the conclusion. A desire to start a family and have a little one stands as top priority for many people to achieve happiness, feel complete, and fully understand the meaning of their lives. Yes, some folks out there opt to be lonely wolves and pursue their career. Others choose to be child-free for whatever reasons they have. I understand that. I respect their choice and have no problems with that. But I also understand that they do not represent the majority of society. So, my friend, if you have better things to do in your life, I am happy for you, and I will not be persuading you to change your mind. You're good, I'm good, we both are cool, peace. For the rest of the dwellers of planet number 3, here's a question. Why exactly does starting a family have to be central to your plans? Well, because there are two main things everything that is alive is biologically wired to do: to keep being alive and to procreate. And our brains employ every possible trick it can to make us stick to the plan. It does not matter how refined, or educated, or mannered you are as a person, when the time comes, and the stars align. We have discussed what exactly happens to you in Chapter 2. Something in your brain clicks, and you turn into an animal. Two brains click, since it normally takes two to tango. You take off your clothes, and let the second person the closest possible into your private space. Your heart rate speeds up, your blood pressure rises, and, in general, you find yourself in quite a stressful situation. But since your brain has shut down, you become too dumb to acknowledge your state. Dumb, but exceedingly happy. Everything happens way faster than you expected, but it's okay. You cuddle naked, enjoying shots of hormones that are painting a bright future for you too, whilst in fact, they are working rapidly to bond you together for the further process of carrying a child. You may even feel like dropping the L word. No advice from me here. It's up to you to decide. I get that at that moment you are excited and still delusional, but in the world of hookup culture, sex is obviously no biggie. So, dropping the L word after the first round may be considered bad manners. And so, you fall asleep. Your brains finally pull back together and bump fists, enjoying the perfect job they've done on drugging you too. If only they knew you were wearing a rubber, and all their hard work on taking over your minds, all that chemical mastery, was such a waste of precious time and glucose. Understanding the science of sexual attraction leads us, my friend, to the terrifying truth that the absence of desire to have a kid, tricks aside, your brain thinks that every time you have sex, you are about to reproduce, can be considered as tragic as no will to continue living. And still, even considering free sex culture, we have managed to create the most sex-less generation of people, leave alone people who are ready to commit and bond firmly with someone else. So, what happened to us exactly? Well, many things. Let's take a big step into the past. Long before the time when the church grabbed everyone firmly by their balls and proclaimed that whoring around was not cool, it had been human biology that propelled a certain kind of behavior in the social relationship between a man and a woman. Since day one, it was pretty common for both genders to pay close attention to the sexual characteristics of each other. Men basically looked for a young and beautiful woman, since youth and beauty meant strong health and the ability to bring healthy children into the world. The men's plan has always been solid and concrete, to impregnate as many women around as possible. On the other hand, ladies had to be pickier, because a successful pregnancy would get them off track for 9 months of bearing a child, plus some extra years, until the child is grown enough to take care of themselves. If a human baby did not require that much care and attention for that long time, chances are, we would have never come up with anything else between a man and a woman but sex. For ladies, it was pretty important to mate with someone who was the biggest, the strongest, and the fastest from the local social group. Someone who could surely catch a mammoth, bring some food to the table, and a fur coat for a change, so a madam could parade in front of her less fortunate girlfriends, or at worst, hide herself and her children from the cold. Women have been deciding who comes aboard since day one. These days, however, if my boy can't catch a mammoth, he needs to make sure he can buy it. It does not mean that every lady out there is a gold digger. It means that the chances that she will love you solely for your sophisticated personality are quite slim. But it was not enough to simply pick the best man from the crowd. It was also important to make the man care for the woman he'd knocked up. And it was nature that helped a lot by introducing oxytocin, which is released a lot during a sexy time, and is intended to bond two people together, fall in love, if you will. Your brain does not know who you're having sex with. It tries hard to bond you with this person anyhow. Every time you fight your biology and switch to a different someone, you become more and more used to the mechanism, and hence immune, taking a chance away from yourself to firmly bond with someone when the right person comes your way. Another thing that nature did to human beings that also works in favor of monogamy is hidden ovulation. Unlike with animals, it is quite complicated, and back in the day, impossible, to tell when a woman is ready to conceive. So, for a couple to have a child, it was necessary to stay together for a while, and try regularly and hard, or not so hard, depends on preferences, to make the magic happen. Basically, after a couple is established, it would be really ugly, and actually dangerous, to get knocked up by someone else, who was not very interested in building a family with that woman, offering care, and providing for her and her kid later on. And since it was impossible to tell when exactly the impregnation was possible, it was better to not have affairs, just in case. The same strategy of forming a family would go on for quite a while. People would invent marriage, to tie an extra knot over the natural hormonal bonding. The church would add some additional fright by saying that everyone who fucks around would go to hell and be tormented forever for they had sinned. And so, some common and distinct norms and boundaries were set. Things would remain unchanged for thousands of years until the 19th century, when bored progressive women decided it was finally time to gather together and make the first steps in fighting the oppressive yoke of patriarchy. And, good for them. If I were to digress a little and express my opinion on the early feminist movement, I'm with you ladies. Both genders must have equal rights, period. But, there's always a but. After obtaining social equality, and successfully kicking the ass of the previously dominant patriarchy that hid under the marriage bed and only squeaked, "Yes, dear," a bored empowered woman wiped the sweat off her forehead, gave it a little thought, and questioned, "Hold on a second. Why the hell does anyone tell me who to sleep with? My body, my choice. Free love it is." And if back in the day, a bunch of men dressed in cloaks and hoods could joyfully holler, "Burn the whore," and make a picnic, by the time of the 60s of the previous century, the same men could only puff out their cheeks because there was really nothing else left to say or do. At first. However, after some thinking outside the box, men quickly realized that it was a blessing in disguise, since the ladies promoted free access to their bodies without further consequences for the entering side, and men love having access to women's bodies without further consequences. It simply felt better to just enjoy the moment rather than fighting against it. Unexpected pregnancy was still a problem, but a way around it was found, and on the 11th of May, 1960, the Food and Drug Administration of the USA gave a green light and let defeated men present a great offering to the modern goddesses of love, the pill, an oral contraceptive. And it may seem that there's nothing wrong with being aware of your sexuality, and you, my friend, are right. It is normal and healthy to understand your body, discover what brings you pleasure, and, well, indulge in those discoveries. But for some reason, it was apparently not progressive enough to study each other's bodies and sexuality within marriage, and only deep and intensive studies, carried out by the wide range of scientists, were truly the key to empowerment. The definition of what is empowerment still remains a mystery. For instance, it is empowering to post naked bodies online, and then get mad at filthy men, who keep sexualizing women. It is empowering to sleep around and claiming the number of incomes does not matter, yet be ashamed to proudly speak the number out loud. Don't try to understand. Grab some popcorn and observe from the sidelines. The sailing ship driven by the powerful winds of promiscuity and liberty did slightly hit the rocks when the folks found out about STDs. However, a thoughtful wearing of a latex safety vest helped navigate the ship back into the ocean of love again. Women were happy, reveling the heady feeling of complete freedom. Men were happy, because they had lots of sex for free. The previously authoritative church was sadly observing people fucking under every bush and only repeated the words of Father McFeely from Scary Movie 2. The new world was happening. And then again, from the perspective of modern days, it would be very odd to root against freedom for both sexes. But it would be no less odd, and even hypocritical, not to acknowledge the apparent downside of it. After new at the time, global promiscuity had gotten a little weary. People got off each other, looked around, scratched their heads, and headed separate ways. The propaganda of family values went out of fashion, since in a world full of progressive and woke individuals, it became absolutely unacceptable to discuss concepts such as gender roles. Even thinking, let alone saying out loud, that men normally have to be masculine and women normally have to be feminine became toxic. Constantly fighting for gender equality in society, we, for some reason, also try extremely hard to fight and eventually erase the biological difference between both sexes. And we are so deep in this shit already, that we don't seem to be able to tell the difference between fighting to alter rights and morals, and fighting to alter nature itself anymore. Quite naturally, no surprise here, we have ended up in a situation where we do not really need each other. Both men and women have learned how to take care of themselves separately. Marriage has lost its significance, as the trend of jumping in and out of one has become relatively normal. Mutual commitment, loyalty, and love end at the moment when two become bored of sleeping together, and apparently, it is okay, since two progressive people can do whatever they want without considering each other. There's no more authority to remind folks that after they say, "I do," they ought to face possible problems together, not against the other. Instead, along with the sound of never-ending cheerful music, we are being told from every corner that this life is all about having fun and making money. And if fun ends with one person, simply go find another one. And so, while crowds of enlightened people flood the internet competing over who is more oppressed, who is a greater victim of gender inequality, and whose life is more unfair, there are fewer and fewer folks left out there who still remember that men and women are naturally different, but are made to complement each other. These people still treasure long-forgotten purity, ready to commit, to start a family, to be responsible for that family, and to make sure their family works. They do not have time to figure out how many genders there are, of course two, or what pronouns will make them complete and happy. Their happiness runs around the house and disturbs their sleep. I want you, my friend, to recall a family gathering. The one with a bunch of people at the table laughing loudly, drinking, eating, joking, and having fun. Remember something like this? Good. Now, let one uncomplicated thought sink in. It was only possible to get all those folks together because all the previous generations had less shit in their heads, and basically, successfully did one simple thing. They did not fail their nature. We all are biologically wired to have children, and we all are biologically wired to feel complete, fulfilled, and happy when we finally have them. And despite the abundance of stuff and activities around us, for the majority of folks, nothing has been discovered yet that could make us feel better in the long run than simply sticking to the plan.